Okay, let's do this.
C'est le centre du jeu.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, everybody, come on in, grab a seat. We are just about to get started with our next panel session.
Really?
Should I get him in? Should I... Okay, guys, do you want to come on in? Come take a seat so we can get going. I'm going to wait for a few more of you to... Still a few coming. Okay. Whilst the last few guys are making their way in, let's have a look at who we've got in the audience, in the room. Can you just raise your hands? Who have we got of composers? We're just trying to see who we're talking to. A lot of composers. Labels and publishers. Okay, and have we got any techies, any products? Okay, so we're fairly mixed. Good. All right, we're going to get started. We're not going to do introductions because everybody is up on the wall there. You can see who we all are. We're going to talk about technology, and we're going to talk about all those good things that are out there for us to take advantage of, what we should be thinking about, how we can protect our assets, how we can set ourselves up well, and then what sort of innovative things we've got going on. Got some great candidates up here for that. So I'm going to come to Val first and ask, what are you thinking about when you're registering your works? You know, you're putting your works out there. What sort of processes are you following? Who are you working with? You know, what's your checklist when you're starting out?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I'm always trying to make sure that the metadata is fully refined, very robust. Obviously, meta is king. So keeping a really good in-house system of all of that metadata before it's shared out. So that's definitely super important for us. We had a lot of manual processes in the past, and we've been working on really finding, you know, wonderful tools that can really help us work smarter, not harder. So definitely I've paired with these guys over the last couple of years. I've worked with BMAT, using their broadcast technology to really detect all of the music use all over the world. We do CWR registrations, making sure that everything's super robust, and we're getting back acknowledgements, obviously, from the PROs, just to make sure everything, the checks and balances and everything's properly registered, because if it's not proper from the get-go, then, you know, the royalties won't flow back to us as right holders and also to our composers. So always trying to step up and look for the most important technologies that we can to make our jobs smoother, easier, and make sure that we're obviously optimizing revenue as much as possible. Recently paired with Philip from MatchTune and really going after anything we can in terms of copyright infringement and just understanding where the music's used all over the world. And it's really interesting to see all of the new technologies that are coming out today. That's what we're speaking about today, and how we can continuously step up our game and just be challenging ourselves by looking at what tools are out there at our disposal in order to optimize royalties for everyone involved. So yeah, it's been a journey of doing everything in-house. I used to say I get paid to look at TV commercials, which was a pretty sweet gig, and really diving into how can I stop having to lift everything necessarily on my own and look for technology that can help support and grow revenue. And it's grown exponentially since bringing in sub-publishers and really trusted parties. That's a huge part for me, is making sure that the gut check is there and that the relationship is really strong. The technology can be strong, but obviously having a very solid working relationship and making sure that that is the proper technology for you to be using, they go hand in hand for me. And we're also working with the team at Orpheum, looking after our UGC and just making sure that there's proper management of our catalog and making sure that we are recognized as rights holders, because obviously there's just a lot of infringement out there, and if we could all stop stealing from each other, that would be nice. Yeah, so just looking for always ways to step it up.
Okay, thank you. And then, so you work with Lewis, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing and kind of what you offer and why. What are the benefits? We talk about marking of music and fingerprinting and all of those things we touched on. So can you go a little deeper into that and what we should be thinking about, and if we don't, then what are the penalties if we don't get that in order?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, monitoring music using fingerprint brings a lot of benefits, like probably a lot of people in this room is already aware. I would say that these are really exciting times when it comes to research in music technology, especially because of AI. The reason why I'm telling this is because the fingerprint technology that BMAT in particular has been working on and developing since 15 years ago, it's struggling with anything in detecting sound recordings used in AI-generated content. And we are taking steps to develop technology in this aspect, and also collaborating with the university in Barcelona, Pompeu Fabra, with a research group. And what we are seeing is that we are breaking that black box that could see, how we can determine whether AI-generated song, what sound recordings have been used, to create an AI-generated song. Well, it turns out that we are leveraging on the way the models are created, which is called diffusive models. That sounds very, very strange, but in a sense, what it does is that these models create songs replicating exact parts of songs for which the AI engine has been trained. And that opens the door to let's say, reverse engineer, to trace back and find out what songs are used in that model. There's a recent study that has been developed by the university using some metrics of music, using some metrics for music detection, can bring good results. When we look at the song, we can find some parameters that can tell us if there is a difference, if there is an element present in that song, AI-generated song, of more than 10%, it can be determined what song was. And this is a research research done in a university, but also at BMAT we are doing our own research in that direction using our own fingerprint. And even though it has to be evolved, and we are in a very early stage to have a solution in place, it's very, very positive, the results that we are getting, and we are very confident that very soon something in that area that can happen. This is interesting, but probably the most interesting part as well is the possibilities that this opens to the industry, no? And one, of course, is fine infringements, no? Or fine usages that are not licensed in these songs. But also, and this is a discussion, of course, but it can open new business opportunities, no? Like how to distribute royalties for artists or composers whose songs have been used in AI-trained tracks that are used in film, TV, or any other usage that could come in future. But anyway, this is something that we are exploring, and as an innovative company, we are very, very keen to come to a solution that can not only help find this infringement, but also potentially open new business opportunities.
Okay, great, thank you. And do you think, so just to touch on what Val said, so that relationship we have with our provider, or who we're putting our hands, is that quite key? Because there's a lot of technologies out there. So do you sort of working side by side with your partners? Is that something that we can all buy off the shelf, and sort of, can you tailor and work with and guide your clients, down that path?
Yeah, absolutely. We are training these models with, sorry, not training these models, but we have a database that links compositions to sound recordings, and we have validated this. So we prove that if a client wants to go in that direction, it's definitely something that we could do. Of course, there's some work to do, but it's definitely something that we are. It is at the forefront of our priorities. So yeah.
Cool. I'm just going to say that we meet regularly and kind of discuss what's going on in the industry. What are the new technologies? What are you guys doing to step it up? I feel like we do a good job of kind of holding each other accountable and constantly communicating and refining our processes, and that's how we've been able to grow and succeed over the last couple of years we've been working together. So
yeah, great.
Very important to me.
Important. Yeah.
Yeah, we find something that you mentioned before, the strong relationship. It's something key, I think. You can have a great technology, but if you don't have that human relation and understand the needs and what is required and empathize with your clients, it's definitely it's something that makes a big difference, of course.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Philippe, you're at MatchTune. You're doing some really interesting. You've got some interesting stuff. We were talking earlier. Can you explain a little bit about, primarily for production music, but also you're working with commercial artists and across the board. What's happening at MatchTune that you can tell us about?
Yes, so we're mainly focusing on finding unpaid royalties or unlicensed music, both for commercial music and production music. We scan over 11 different UGC platforms, and additionally we look at about 100,000 corporations, and we look mainly for altered masters, covers, AI generated content, deep fakes, etc. And for instance, on YouTube, so we scan 20 million videos a day, and on everything we find on, let's say, YouTube, about 60% is actually undetected by Content ID. And the number are just big. And now that you have, AI-generated content in AI music, is going to be even worse. So I think it's very important to really look at the reality. There is a very large volume of a royalty that is not being allocated to the artist, and we are we are here to help labels and producers and publishing to get that money back.
Okay, I'm going to go to the floor now to see if anyone at this stage has got any questions for Luis or for Philippe. Has anybody got anything they want to ask? Do we have a mic on the floor? I don't know if we... It's coming. I can't see a thing. Great, thank you.
Hey, how are you doing? I had a quick question for, I think it was BMAT, Louis. You were saying that your software can match an AI track to its generative components, so where it got the music from. What is it using to identify that? If it's, harmony, melody, like, how can it say, oh, this track was built upon these 4 derivatives, I guess is my question.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm sorry if I explained incorrectly, but I didn't say that we can do it now. It's that we are doing some research, and the tests that we are performing are so far very positive. No, that's fine. Thanks for the question, because I wanted to clarify this. Probably next year this time we can ensure and say 100% that we can do this. But so far so good, but still we are cautious. The way it works, I don't want to go very technical, I don't think it's the purpose, but to help understand, when you analyze a piece of audio, there are certain metrics that you can extract. As you said, well, one of them, to give you an example, we have a cover detection technology already, that can detect variances of a song, but still related to the same composition. So it's we can detect a cover in that aspect. There are other metrics that can tell us more information besides this one that we are exploring, and that can determine to a certain level of precision, of course, whether there is elements in that AI-generated song that belongs to a sound recording that we already know and we have in our database, and we know for the metrics. No? It's all about extracting metrics, parameters, numbers, and comparing them and seeing how similar they are. And yeah, that's how we do it. It's similar to how fingerprint technology works, but expanded to AI to detect songs in AI to make it simpler. Sorry, probably it's not very clear, but I just don't want to go very technical because it can be really messy to understand. But there are metrics that can tell us this information. That's the idea.
Anybody else at this point? Just hold on for the mic.
Hi. Whoa, in the back. Hello? Whoa. This way, over here. Ooh. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I would love to. I'm
We're slightly blinded up here. Sorry, we can't see.
It's okay. Chris Montague from 4 Elements Music in New York. And this is a question for Luis. We've been working with you folks for some years. It's been great. And we're just wondering if there's a plan to move the detection into streaming shows also, because as we move into the streaming world, and obviously we've been in broadcast for a long time, but we want to be able to get detections for shows that are strictly streaming. And do you ever, also as a sidebar, imagine the possibility of a client being able to put in their own data into your system and get a detection back? Like we have a show we want to get screened, and we just want to give that data to you, plug it into the site, and have it send back our detections.
Sorry, I didn't fully understand. I'm struggling to listen. Someone can help.
Do you want me to say it again?
It's quite difficult to hear, isn't it?
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
video.
Detection services and streaming.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Got it. We technically, I mean, as of today, it's not legal to monitor any VOD platform, unfortunately. So that's a major blocker, as you can imagine. For us, we don't want to get into trouble. Technically speaking, there could be possibilities in tracking, for example, ads, no, in these platforms. When it comes to track shows or the usage of the shows, this is something that, as of today, it's only possible by using the reports that the platforms provide, in this case to the CMOs, no, to do the distribution, unless the publishers, labels, or composers, or the right holders basically have access to this information. We won't be able to do anything in that area, unfortunately. We have technology, of course, to do that and find and compare eventually number of airings of a show against a statement, for example. It's the input data what is the problem in this case. And yeah, as I said, unless you guys have access to that information, is not viable. The best thing as of today, since it all relies and it goes down to the cue sheets, no? Currently we are helping 15 CMOs to do the VOD distribution. We have a database of almost 680K cue sheets from the platforms. So we have all that information. And what we always recommend is to ensure that the cue sheet contains all the information and is as accurate as possible. And we do have technology to help with that, either production companies and the platforms. But yeah, that will be the way as of today.
Okay, and I think we've got another question down here.
Yeah, hi. My name is Stu, and I'm an alcoholic. So, shit. Knew there weren't any donuts. So the question is, both for BMAT and Matchtune, there are certain unscrupulous composers who will take other people's music and then give it to one of the giant aggregators. And I'm just wondering, is there any way you can scan for a library's music that would be located on those aggregators? Is it legal to go through their files? Like, what happens if they change key, tempo, that kind of stuff? Does that make sense at all?
Philippe, do you want to have a go at this one to give Luis a break?
Yes. Well, we are facing, a number of cases that is happening. So it starts from modifying, existing masters, or taking bits and pieces from one music and trying to incorporate it into another one. We have the ability to identify down to 3 seconds of a music, and even if this has been mixed up with some other layers. So we can't stop everything, we can't detect everything, but what we want is to have 0 false positive, meaning that we don't want to report anything that is actually not accurate. So we don't guarantee that we are going to catch 100% of everything, but if we can catch 70% but have 0 false positive within what we find, that makes us happy, I'm going to say.
Okay, then just one follow-up question, and that is, can you actually, instead of just in usage, and not just on a daily, like somebody uses the music on television, can you actually go into someone's database, like a library that exists, do a search for all, and then be able to determine if any of those songs are mirrored in someone's library?
Did you get the question? So is
yet.
there anything out there that could literally sort of, if I'm understanding this, trail through all the tracks in your catalogue and then detect whether they've been used to form other...
In another catalog.
In another catalogue, to form other tracks.
I'm going to say yes. We have to look into that. I can be certain about how far we can go, but we can look into these things. I'm going to say.
I think that's going to be a question
Yes.
from a lot of people moving forward. Obviously, we're not really going down that path today, but it's like the learning and the machine learning and Gen AI and how we can protect what we've got and how we can, figure out what's been used, what hasn't. But so for the moment, you're working on detections in general.
We just announced a technology that allows us to identify a Suno-generated music with a 95% certainty. We believe Suno and Udio are the two largest artificial music providers that are going to be out there for a while. They have money. Suno is free, and so we believe there's going to be a lot of artificial music out there, and it's very hard to identify, how they've been training their model. But at least if we can prevent these, fake music to entering into libraries, music libraries, I think that's a good start. And this is where we try to focus.
Okay. Did you want to say anything to that at this point?
Well, I actually have a question on that. I don't have any answers for that, but I do have a question. How much can someone augment a Suno-originated track before you can't track it? Like, does it have to be 3 seconds of the original Suno track, or if I run it through a stem separator and then add some splice stuff to it, like, do you think you'd still be able to detect it? I'm just personally curious.
Well, I like to take this image. When you take a rifle and you shoot 10 bullets, if you look at the bullets, all these bullets will have the same little marks because they all came out from the same gun. And this is what we have been looking for. And so we have been working on thousands and thousands of Suno-generated music. And we found a pattern. So it's a kind of a signature. So it makes us now very, very easy to identify something that was generated by Suno, even if this was like afterwards, introduced into a bigger, piece of music. And at the moment we're trying to do the same thing for Udio, but honestly, Udio, they are doing a better job as at hiding things. But at the end of the day, I believe we are going to be able to make a difference between something that is real and something that is not.
Okay. Before we change tact a little bit, is there another question here? Yes. Hi.
Hi there. My question is, a lot of production music libraries will watermark their tracks through stuff like source detect. How does that, how much do music detection services currently rely on watermarks, and how, if you go through stuff like, stuff being trained for AI, and labels really taking a lot of liberty in, like trailers or TV shows really, really messing with the audio files that they get, how detectable is the watermark after going through these processes that might completely change the track?
Luis, do you think you can answer that one?
I'm so sorry, I didn't understand.
It's really quite tricky to hear. So, how far along can the track that's already watermarked, right?
That's already watermarked.
How much can you kind of mess with that track before that watermark is no longer sort of valid or works?
I'm sorry, but I'm not an expert in watermarking, so I can't answer that question. We use fingerprint technology, not watermarking, so no. I'm sorry, but I can't resolve that.
Do you want to rephrase it?
I mean, I feel like you already answered a lot of the stuff about, fingerprints non-watermarked, I
Yeah,
guess,
so
just from the music itself. So yeah, but I was just interested whether you guys rely on watermarks or whether it is just the fingerprints of the track itself.
So if you've marked your track with whatever process, if it's messed with, if it's used, if it's augmented, if it's, you know, we play with it, how much can it retain that fingerprint before it becomes non-valid anymore?
Right. Yeah.
We don't know.
No,
Maybe
no,
we don't
we know. It's just I'm thinking how to approach this because I can't give you specific numbers, but definitely it's something. I mean, modifying the audio represents an edge case for the fingerprint technology, and I guess it's the same for watermarking. But again, I'm not an expert, so I can tell on that. Essentially, if we go to the basics, no, fingerprint works by similarity. It extracts certain parameters and compares them compares the two elements and how similar they are. The more you modify the song, the more the fingerprint will be different compared to the original one. No? How much you can make it, it's something that I will need someone from the R&D team here to answer that question specifically. But I can tell you that at least at BMAT, we have different variations of the fingerprint, and one of them is specifically designed for the use case where the song is modified, whether the pitch is modified, BPM, any modification that can happen to the song to a certain extent, of course. Yeah, but I will need an R&D engineer here to tell you the numbers specifically.
So, for example, if they took the stems and just used a piano stem or even something like a percussion stem, which isn't as recognizable, that might start to cause a few problems in terms of recognizing the work.
I'm sorry, I'm just struggling. It's just the
Yeah,
sound
it's
is
the
terrible.
So
sound.
if you change the sound, so if you change, are you saying change the sound from a piano?
If
to
you take a
saxophone or something
stem,
that?
like if you're really deconstructing a track, that might cause some more problems.
Yeah.
Of course. Actually, the fingerprint technology can notice, well, at least the one at BMAT can notice slight changes in the audio. So if you have let's say in production music, you have a main version of a song and then you have a no drums version or a vocals version, that will have a completely different fingerprint. Could it be that both are detected by the system indistinguishably? It could happen depending on how much that difference is, which is exactly the question you are having. But yes, if you modify anything in the audio, that will be represented by a different fingerprint in general.
I can add something on the original question, which was around watermarking. I'm by no means a watermarking expert, but just delineation of what process of augmentation will dictate whether or not you can actually track it. So like, let's say you have a watermark in an audio file, a musical audio file. You can speed it up, change it, flip it, reverse it. Like as long as a part of that audio file is intact, especially the part that contains the watermark, you'll be able to detect the watermark. But I think your question's probably informed by, the topic du jour, which is like, if there is a deep learning model and there's a watermarked file sitting in a corpus of 100,000 songs, and then you generate to create a model that's trained on that, and then it creates a totally new output. Unless every single one of those tracks in that training set has the exact same watermark, it's probably very, very unlikely that you're going to see enough traces of that watermark in that output to spot it in the wild. And so that presents a bunch of problems. Like basically, in all of these conversations, and we're going to get to this later, but if you're talking about the training methods that the Sunos and the Udios of the world employ, a lot of these things get really, really hard to track. Obviously, like Philippe's technology is looking at a lot of Suno tracks and finding a pattern or a signature in the way that they do it. But you can obscure even that. You could take some Suno tracks and some Udio tracks and then train a model on that and create like a next layer of output. You could similarly also create automated processes that combine fully generative content, like the stuff that comes directly out of Suno, with some non-generative content, which, we might be actually adding to that problem inadvertently, but we can get to that later. But that makes a lot of these things like a lot harder to trace, which like for this community, for the group in this room, to me would tell us that you should think like really long and hard before you engage in any kind of agreement on training on your stuff in any capacity. Even if it's like ethical and licensed and all that, because the traceability of these things in the short to medium term is going to be really, really dicey and funky. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
I think we're going to go a little bit in a different direction for a moment and then come back, because I think otherwise we'll just stick on that subject. So we are circling back to derivative works, etc. Let's talk a little bit about search and about the sort of tech that's out there. There's a lot of composers in the room, so there's obviously, you write your tracks, you want to be able to get to as much of your catalogue as possible, and there are some new technologies out there that help us playlist easier, that help us, find works and match tracks and all of those things. So, Einar, do you want to talk to us a little bit about some of the opportunities we should be looking for to have a look into that deeper?
Sure. So we do search and discovery for music, and we think that's the best competition for Gen AI. If you're able to find great humanly created music fast as you can generate something, or even faster, then there's no real need for Gen AI. I think people in this room would appreciate that we'll use really composed music for it. And with our technology, any search will look through an entire catalog in every search. So the tracks you made in 2014 can still be the best match for the search. And since we accept input from multiple sources, being reference tracks or natural language or keyword, we can really dig deep and find tracks based on the qualities of the audio, which will just democratize that search result. And the end goal is putting the right track in front of that editor or user. And we want that right track to be copyrightable and created by humans.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's, I and we at BMG ourselves, we're sort of ambassadors of that approach. We like to do as much with the catalogue that we've got in front of us without sort of having to go, we've got so much music, so it's about how we unearth that and how we make that count and find the best tracks. So is there anything we should be, what's sort of way ahead? So we're all tagging our music, we're all creatively, punching in our keywords or using AI methods to tag our music at the moment. Do you foresee that there's a shift there? Will there be, obviously we know that those models out there that are helping us tag aren't just based on keywords, they're not just based on text, they're based on music. And what's ahead there? What can we sort of look forward to, or how can we think we'll be, making our music more searchable moving forward?
I think there's no one method to search better. So that's why we try to build things that help you in different situations. So tagging will be there. It's not the most exciting things to do, but you listen to an audio and you tag it based on the genres you need. But we built, for example, now natural language search. So you can input whatever you want in whatever language you want, explaining the music or the scene or anything that's in your head, like you're asking a friend or a music soup for what you're looking for. And it understands that, turns it into a search that looks at the audio. And then we add another layer on that we call lyric search, understanding the sentiment and topics of lyrics, and combining those together will solve a long-standing problem for music soups and high-value sync. It's like, how do I find a song about togetherness? Not looking for the word togetherness or family. Yeah. So we're teaching the algorithm to understand what a song is about. I think it would be super powerful. But we also see changes in search behavior on other ways based on the way you listen to music on Spotify, for example. We are being served music. So like, you're listening to this, why don't you listen to this? So we are doing that by saying, if you have 2 or more tracks that you like, we will make a search for you immediately in your projects or playlists of all the other tracks in your catalog that are similar to those tracks. And we see from live use cases that people who usually search with keywords, they now go in and they find just 2 or 3 results they like, and then they skip over to the way they are used to in their personal life, like shuffle, give me the next song that is suitable for my playlist, and now you build a project in 5 minutes and you ship it to a client. And then those different workflows will make it so much more efficient, at the same time digging like deep into catalog, and finding those things that are most suitable. And
Okay.
there's a few examples of what can be happening.
Thank you. I'm interested if there's any composers in the room that would be happy to talk about, you know, how you would foresee technology helping your catalogues be sort of unearthed, or when you're using processes for, if you're personally tagging your own music, or what process is being used, or how you think, or if you've got any questions about how the process could be easier, or those methods that could get your music sort of out there and in front of more people. Anybody got anything to ask? Yeah, we've got one down here.
So it's funny you brought that up, because I was thinking about what you were saying, and I was looking at your site while you were talking, and with it being geared towards music libraries and music supervisors or record labels or what have you, it would be nice to have something like that that may be AI generated that I could use, where I could input my original compositions, and it tells me what tags and metadata would actually fit that type, so it's easier for a music supervisor to find what I made. A lot of times, I may have a general idea of what a genre may sound like, right, or what I believe it to be based on my experiences and what I've learned, but what I consider to be urban is actually pop, according to this group, right? So having something like that that's geared towards the composer or the individual, that is quick and easy, I think would really help not only make it regimented, but also uniform across the board. But that's just one thing I would like to see to make it easier for me.
Yeah, that's something that we already have. So you can just drop in an audio and we'll tag it with genre, instrumentation, mood, tempo, language of lyrics, etc. At your level, if you drop by our booth over there and talk to Mike, he'll hook you up with some credits and you can tag it and see how it works for you. Yeah, go over and talk to Mike and he'll set you up with some credits for it.
How about adding sound-alikes to that? So one of the things I often get asked as a music songwriter is, who does this sound like? Or who else is like this? So that they know how to pigeonhole it. Does yours do that? Provide those kind of references for us?
No. We don't do sound-alikes. And we're not planning to.
This is one of those instances where like a use case that has a real benefit in the real world has some legal minefields in the like building process, which is like you would then have, I mean, this is also why a lot of systems can't use artist names or copyright names as like a search starting point, even though you can upload the song and potentially do a similarity search on the waveform. But if you start using a search interface that takes like an artist name or a song title name, you're kind of sending the wrong message to the rights holders that you may or may not have used some of their IP, including just like names of their artists and names of their songs, which invites a bunch of problems, which is why that product doesn't really exist, even though technically it could totally exist.
Right? Yeah, there's a use case for it, and I understand that it's valuable for some, but I think it's kind of fading out with the other technological solutions out there.
Einar, I have a quick question in the back here. Hey, I was just curious about whether there's any ability to make searches less accurate sometimes, and because sometimes when you're looking for music to give to a client, you want to give them exactly what sounds like their reference, but you also want to give them like the counterfactual of what is quiet when they want loud, and sometimes they're like, oh, that's really cool. Or you just want to be a little wider in your spectrum of what's giving. Is there like the way that MIDI has humanizing, ability on it in the DAW? Is there something like that in AIMS?
We don't have it built in. Like by default, we give you the songs that have the most similar feel. That's kind of the core of what we do. But we have been asked by some clients, can you hide the first 3 results because they are too spot on? But it's not common. You can just go further down the line, or you can filter on some kind of extra keyword you want in the results to go further out. But I also think that's a part of the human creativity. If somebody's asking you for something, you can give them that. And if you also want to throw in some wildcards, then I think you have to pick those wildcards yourself.
Sounds good.
Okay, was there another one here? I can't see. If there's anyone out of the mic, speak now, because we can't see you very well. No? Okay, so we've covered obviously how we protect our music, and we've got it in there. We want to source it. So what comes next? So, Anthony, we've been talking earlier today. There's some, what can we do, or what's sort of ahead where we use our works? So I'm not particularly focusing on Jen here, but using the works that we have. What can we do? What technology is out there that can let us tweak them a little bit? So music suits, I want something a little bit more jazzy. I want something without this, or I want something with this. What can we be looking at there?
Yeah, I think, we at Toonie work with a lot of artists and musicians, and I think a lot of people who produce music and compose music are a little confused that they're really complicated music production software offerings, and then all of a sudden there was this like text-to-music thing, and then the last 6 months it's gotten to sound really good. And a lot of people are like, where are the tools in the middle of that which can be a music production co-pilot of sorts and automate certain production functions without completely taking me out of the process and delivering the thing to me? And those same needs are felt by non-musical people in the, in the like film and television production world and the commercial production world, like video editors, right? I mean, a lot of video editors who don't have the budget to have like a music editor or composer counterpart are in Premiere, like hacking up stems, which is not ideal, and that's a big pain point. So. One of the things that we've always been working on is tools that allow people to create derivatives with the original audio from human-created tracks. And it might not be super obvious to the average person, but that's actually like a way more complicated technical challenge, because there's not that much data available to do training on things like that. So like there's a bunch of complete music, right? Like Suno and Udio basically just like scrape YouTube or Spotify, and they get all the world's music. Those are complete audio files. And they basically, in a very gross oversimplification, tell the system, like, look at all these, extract some patterns, and then create me one of these, a complete song. But if you go in there and you say, oh, but I want to, change the melody or the chords or the drums, like, it doesn't really know what you're talking about. So like someone over here was like, does it look at the melody? Does it look at the chord progression? It doesn't know what you're talking about, because the data it trained on didn't have chord progressions. It didn't say, like a lot of times it doesn't know what key that is. It just looks at the waveform as a whole, and it has song level tags. So it knows jazz and mood, like a lot of the things that these guys append to tracks. That's what it has, right? So for you to start asking it to do music production functions, it doesn't have that kind of visibility. So like what I'm excited about is that after the whiplash from like the fully generative stuff subsides, these challenges still exist for us, which is like, how do I take an existing work and do something new with it? And we have a product that's available now called Beat Swap, which like anyone that creates vocal tracks can use, where you upload either a vocal demo or a finished song, and we will take the vocal out and then generate a new instrumental underneath it. But you know, the vocal is your vocal. No one's like, there's no training or anything. It just like takes the stem of your vocal. And then the instrumental is being assembled from loops and samples that we have in our sounds library that are made by human beings. And what the algorithm does is it basically automates what a producer would do in a DAW to assemble all those things together using music theory and composition rules. And so the nice thing about that for this community is I did not just wipe away the copyright, and I did not obscure the ownership and the source of the information, which like the Suno and Udios of the world do. Like when you train on 100,000 songs and then you make a net new song, it's really hard to say like what that new song has from those 100,000, because it's just like a pattern recognition machine, and you're like, make me a jazz song, and it's like, bleh. What we're doing is, you know, assembling and creating like remixes basically and derivatives with 100% traceability. So, you know, we are one of the few companies that are working on stuff like that. There's some others. I'm obviously personally more excited about those kind of tools because they don't bring a ton of ethical and legal questions up, but they are quite hard to get right because music is so infinitely nuanced and complex.
Yeah, I mean, we're all looking for the safer way to do all of those things. But like you say, when you're dealing with one track, it's much more difficult, isn't it? I think if you get the buy-in of a various cohort within your, you know, who you're working with or whatever, you probably have more leeway and more creativity there. But I mean, those are all things to think about moving forward. Has anyone got, on the sort of derivative work piece, anybody want to ask any questions on that, especially, I guess, composers in the room, and how comfortable we are or we aren't with this kind of process? Would you like?
Yeah, hello, yeah. You were talking about, here. Hello, yeah.
Hi.
You're talking about editors and producers using music that already exists from a certain composer, right? If they use your service, do they have to ask permission to a composer of using this?
So, I mean, we kind of work, think about us in that capacity as like automated splice. So on the one hand, we work with producers and composers, and we actually have in-house producers and composers creating content that we pay them for. And then on the other hand, we have music creators at various levels using those tools and paying for you know, the content that is flowed into those compositions. So it works kind of like if I put Ableton and Splice together and automated the process, that's like kind of how we are structured.
But as a composer, am I ever gonna know that this was done? Like if I gave my music to a post-production house and they're using my music?
Yeah. So you would be, I mean, so the one thing that we haven't like issued terms on is the ability to monetize on streaming platforms. Yeah, because that's like the hardest thing to track. But creating derivatives and then licensing that out, yeah, you can do that.
Okay, but we will know. I mean, the composer will know that that happened. That's a question. Like,
what's that?
The composer will know that that happened because, I mean, you're creating this for the user of the editor or the person, you know, editing. But the actual composer who owns the music and who wrote the song, are they gonna know that the editor had a new version of a song now?
I see.
And who's getting paid for that?
I see.
Yeah.
So in that instance,
I think it depends who's using it. So if us as a publisher, would we tell every composer that their work has, if we were to use this technology, that it had been put through that process? Probably not, but you would get the royalties and you get paid in the same way that you would if it had been the original track was used. Just speaking, so I think it depends how it's used. So,
yeah, it would kind of follow the same process that happens now when clients of libraries download stems of your compositions, right? So you deliver to a library, you deliver stems. A video editor might pull down those stems, and they might like create an adaptation of your track in a video edit manually. You get paid on that, but you're not necessarily being notified that, hey, your work was, I don't know,
Sliced and diced.
redone in some way.
Yeah.
Also, like if you, in some instances, work directly with broadcasters and you do a buyout agreement as a composer, they sometimes have the right to combine like cues you make for a daytime show with other cues from other composers, and then they just register it as a new work and put both the composers down. So that is already happening in a manual process, and there's no, as far as I know, you don't really find out about it like until after you get your royalty statement, basically, from the PRO.
Okay, was there another one down here? Hi.
Why am I more frightened of this technology than I am of audio? Why am I more frightened of this technology than I am of, let's say, Suno? Because it seems that if we as composers and songwriters are delivering a piece of music that we, made from scratch, and that's how we, delivered it, and it was accepted that way, it sounds a little nefarious or just, I don't know, backroom to take the vocal and create an entirely new instrumental that we would have no say in. Is that something that you're saying is possible? Are you working towards that?
So, like the products that we offer in that regard are basically for people who don't know how to use a DAW as well as you do. And so it's not necessarily me taking like your composition and then in a closed room making some derivative you're not going to get approval of. It's more like a music creation tool.
I think with every, every day as publishers and music supervisors are getting asked for tracks that might be a little bit more this. This is perfect, but I just need it to be a little bit different for whatever reason. And I think then it's like, one question is, would you rather they used your track and it was slightly changed, or they go find another track? And it's that kind of balance, because all that stuff's happening, like we said, with stems. So I want to use this track, but I just need to tweak it a little bit. So can you get me the stems? And then you still credited, it's your work that's credited. So these kind of things are happening. I think what we're talking about here is sort of unearthing these things and making it more approachable or more usable for an everyday client that doesn't, go in the edit suite and those kind of things.
So transparency in terms of like you knowing that happened?
Yeah, and
That like how you as a composer envisioned that?
Are we able to opt in or opt out?
What's that?
Are we opting in or opting out of those things?
Okay, so I think it depends on who you are and who you're working with. So if you're a composer and you're doing a deal with a production library, like the production libraries here, that's already happening. It's been happening for like a decade or more. In a lot of those deals, they take stems from you and they create adaptations, or their clients create adaptations, and then you get paid. Now, what Vicky's talking about is actually good for you, because imagine you're a video editor and you're looking for a perfect track on the BMG website, and I come to your track and I'm like, I really like the vocal from that track, but I need to like remove the drums or soften this up. If I'm able to do that in that instance, your track goes into the show, it appears on the cue sheet, and you get paid. If I can't, then you get skipped over and I go to the next track. So if you're a composer and you're providing music to a production library and your hope is to increase the amount of placements you get and the amount of back end you get, this is like a good thing. However, if you are looking at this as, if you're looking at this as like an artist and you're like, I made that piece the way that I envisioned it, and I only want it to appear in that one format, or otherwise get, have kind of like creative control, or at least like a right of refusal. I mean, obviously there's publishing companies and record labels that do that. Like when I used to music supervise for advertising, if I go to Cobalt and they say, hey, there's some like really famous song and I want to create a cover or adaptation of it, a lot of times that original artist or songwriter has to sign off on that version. But that's kind of a totally different deal structure that they have with those songwriters and composers than what a production library would have with their composers.
I understand. Again, it's been done to me, a number of times. I'm all for it. I've seen stems get chopped and used, and it's great. All of a sudden, there's a cue sheet, and it's wonderful. I was just curious about, if that technology is going to be available is it a paid subscription? Is it something that you're going to release into the wild? Is it something that, in a sense, like we've got a lot of composers here in this room who are songwriters, composers, and, just the fact that this would then take any melody and eliminate the need for somebody to actually have done that in the first place.
Oh, like replace a producer?
I guess so.
Well, so the one reason why I think you should be way more afraid and concerned of the Suno and Udios of the world is because those things are generating, they're generating vocal and instrumental material, and you have no idea where it came from. But it came from like all the world's music. Your music might be in that training set.
But we all agree they're not so great right now.
All of the music, like all of the instrumental content that we provide into that process is made by composers and producers that we pay. And they make basically loops and samples for us. So instead of commissioning whole compositions like libraries do, we commission loops and samples, and then they sit in a database, and our algorithm can use those to create instrumentals to match a vocal, for example. But all of those producers are paid, and we're constantly hiring them to create that stuff. It's very similar. It's a very similar structure to Splice. So, like in theory, anyone that uses GarageBand at a very low level or watches a YouTube video on how to watch GarageBand can go get a Splice subscription, get a bunch of Splice. I mean, now with Koso, like it'll even match it, so 40 sort of. Then you dump it into your DAW. Like sort of kind of arrange it out, bounce it, and like maybe that's a track. But I think the difference between that and a really well-produced track is a night and day. And so that's why I would maybe not be so concerned about any of these technologies really, because I think the nice thing about music relative to other media is that even if you're totally untrained in music, you know what sounds and feels good and what doesn't, and that's still like, for now, even when people hear like the best sounding stuff from Suno and Udio, in my experience, they then equate it to some real artist that it sounds like. You're like, wow, that really does sound like the Beatles. But like, you have a relationship with the Beatles, not this thing that sounds like the Beatles. So.
Okay, we are out of time. Do we have time for one more question? I don't know.
Yeah, time for one more.
Yeah, okay, good. Is there anybody out there with a hand up? I don't think so. Maybe we done?
I got one.
Okay.
So all the music detection stuff is very cool. I've been actually using it for 10, 15 years. The real question is, when does it translate into cash in terms of when are the PROs actually adopting and making use of the detections?
Lewis.
Is that when will they formally accept that for claims? That's a question for them to answer, I guess. Well, no, that's a really good question. In our experience, there's a number of societies that actually are really open to do that, no? And I'm thinking about, for example, GEMA in Germany, PRs in the UK. We have successful experiences with claims, talking about in-show claims, unpaid claims. And here in the US, some of the PROs are also open to do it. The main problem that the PROs express, because at BMAT we see both sides, no? Especially myself, since I work in this area, we see both sides. We see your side, the composer, right holder, publisher, but we also see the side of the PRO, and why is that they are reluctant to claim, to accept sometimes the claims. The thing is that they are not reluctant to accept claims, they are just afraid of receiving a bulk volume of claims that they cannot process because they don't have the bandwidth to do it. So what we do in the countries where they accept the claims from our side is to collaborate with them and help them see what we can provide to help them process them quicker and in a faster way. No? And here in the US, yeah, my experience is that they know there is this request, and my experience is that they want to, but they are afraid of the volume. That's what we know.
Okay, thank you. We're going to stop now, wrap up. I would encourage you to, sorry for saying this, grab the guys if you've got any questions outside or at the drinks later. But thank you, everybody, and thanks for all the good questions. And I think that's it.
Thank you.